It's going to
Me
be
too.
good. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
All right. What's up, Angela? You saw you for a second. Hey, Sue. Great to see you again.
Good to see everybody. Thanks for joining us here today.
Welcome. Hey, guys, hey, Lisa, Tammy, we're going to just give it a minute for some stragglers to join and we'll kick it off. In the meantime, if you don't mind, put where you're joining us from in the chat. Let us know where you're located around the world. Albuquerque.
Abilene. I drove through Abilene the other day. West Texas.
John Francis is in French Guiana. You
Wow.
specified South America. Are you saying we're bad at geography?
Uh, it's good to see everybody. If you're able to have your cameras on, we'd love to interact with you today, and we'll be taking some questions in the chat box. So if you're not at this point familiar with the chat box on Zoom, go ahead and find that. Like Chris said, drop where you're joining us from, and maybe like how many times you've attended a webinar, Chris. That's some good information you might want to know, right?
Yeah, actually, if this is your first time joining a One Thing webinar with us, just put the number one in the chat for us. Thanks, Ryan. Jacqueline.
Right.
By the way, I saw someone was from Israel.
Yeah, I
So
saw
far,
that
I
too.
think that takes the cake. Oh, Sydney, Australia. That's the
Oh,
furthest.
and just like that. Rats.
It's 8 hours. Like now is 11 p.m. in
Oh,
Israel.
Oh,
wow.
that's commitment. Thank you for being on at 11 p.m.
Absolutely.
Now I feel tremendous obligation to deliver value for you.
Uh,
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here. My name's Chris Dixon. I'm the director of training at The One Thing and coach. And I'm joined by Mark Donahue. Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
sure. Yeah. My name is Mark Donahue. I'm one of our coaches. You also see me very heavily involved in the community on over on Facebook, our free Facebook community, and excited to spend the next hour with everybody.
Awesome. Guys, we're really excited about this topic. So today we're going to talk about setting and achieving goals in 2025. So two-parter, not just setting goals, but what can we do to actually stay on track throughout the year and achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves. So why that's appropriate? It's nearly the end of 2024, so why not get some momentum and get some clarity before we go into the new year and play with the lead and get you guys a head start on how we can win next year. So today we want to share some of our system with you guys, some tools and some resources to help you start to get that clarity, get a picture of what success looks like next year in 2025, and some tools that you can use to hopefully stay on track throughout the year. So that's where we're going today. Our goal is to help you get that clarity. Let's get some momentum. Let's go win next year. Mark, anything you'd add?
No, I'm excited. This is the time of the year, friends. And the reason we do this in November is because you probably need a little bit of time to make sure you nail down the plan, finish this year strong. And we're so glad you're here now because the worst time to do this is in January when you're already into the year, especially if you are in any kind of entrepreneurial sales role where you have a sales cycle. If you take 45 days to close business and you have an income goal in 2025, you need to be starting now versus starting in January. So we're excited about you being here. Chris, I know we're going to get this question, and that is this going to be recorded? I came in late. The answer is yes. So if you miss something, a couple ways you can interact. If you have a question, put your questions in the chat box as we move through the kind of the framework today. And of course, we'll try to answer those as we go. And if not, at the end, we will have a Q&A. And then we'll also make sure that the link goes out for everybody to watch the recording if you needed to watch it again.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Well, let's kick off. And before we jump in, I know several of you guys, this is your first time joining a One Thing training. And even for you, those of you that have been around for many of them, it's always a great reminder just to zoom out and talk about what we even believe at the One Thing and our philosophy and how we approach training and productivity and goal setting. So generally, we believe that you should live with purpose, live on purpose. And what that means is having a big vision of the future. Know where you want to be someday in the future and have that connected to your values. Because living with purpose and living on purpose is going to allow you to prioritize the things that matter most to you. Because you know what your big vision is, that enables you to be able to say yes to what matters most in the day to day. Life's busy, things are distracting. So, knowing what your big goals are and looking through your values at those goals allows you to say yes to the things that matter most. Purpose drives priority, allows you to be productive over time towards your goals. How we bring that to life at the One Thing is in what we call the One Thing approach. And this will be the framework for our conversation today and how we'll go through the content for you. To take that philosophy and put it into action, we think you need to first cast a vision. So, what does that mean? That means look out in the future and say, who do I want to be and where do I want to be someday? Use that information to then let you look at the shorter term, say next year, work your way back to next year, 2025, and identify your priorities. That means everything doesn't matter equally. We can't focus on everything the same, or we won't be excellent at anything. So we need to figure out what's going to have the greatest impact on our lives next year and identify those priorities. Maybe it's a promotion at your job. Maybe it's your health. Perhaps it's starting or pushing your business forward. Whatever that is that's going to have the greatest impact for you on the road to your bigger vision, your priorities. Once you know what those are, create the plan. Separate that out. Identify the things you have to do to make achieving that goal next year possible. The 20% that will deliver 80% of your results. Once you have that plan and you feel confident, take action. Go do the thing. Put in the work. Time block. Form habits. Learn lessons. Do the thing. Take action. And finally, evaluate results. Almost 100% sure your plan is not going to go according to plan.
Shocker.
That's a definite. So the world is just too dynamic and you don't have a crystal ball. If you do, I want to invest. Hit me up on the side. I'm in. But most likely you don't. So because of that, we need to then evaluate our results. And you could almost work your way backwards counterclockwise around this flywheel. So every week we're asking the question, did our actions work? What worked, what didn't? What needs to change on the weekly? Every month, zoom out a little bit further. Is our plan working? What changes do we have to make on our plan? Maybe a little bit further, like quarterly, every 6 months. Are we focused on the right priorities? Maybe you earned that promotion. It's time to focus on health. That's great. Every 6 months or year, we're zooming back out, calibrating our compass, casting our vision. So that's the system. That's how we'll go through it today. We'll start by looking at vision, and I'm going to pass it to Mark, and he's going to talk to you guys about how we think about vision and why that's important.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just for a quick clarifying thing, that flywheel is exactly what we do at our goal setting retreat that we just completed. And that was a 2-day event, friends. So where we're going to be today is we're going to be skimming along at the top of some of these things. We're going to spend some time getting a little deeper on other parts, but we want you to be aware that we're here to support you as resources. And we'll talk about how we can support you moving forward towards the end. So let's go into the vision piece. So why do we need to start with vision? Well, really simply because this process, that kind of the fundamental core of the book is this idea of this goal setting to the now. And that starts with going way out into the future and getting clarity on what you heard Chris say, what we really want for our lives. You know, I was talking with a coaching client and they said the other day that, you know, I just am good at setting goals and achieving goals, but where I'm weak is in making sure that my goals align to what I want from my life. So when I get to the end of my working career, end of raising my kids, am I the type of person, or have I achieved the things I wanted to achieve? That's when we talk about this vision. What do you actually want? What matters to you? What would qualify as a successful life across what we're going to talk about 7 circles, right? These spiritual life, your physical health, your key relationships, your personal life, job, business, and finances. You have to get clear on what that is, so that way we have a target to aim towards. And once we're clear on what that North Star vision is, we pull that backwards. And it's demonstrated in this image you see on the screen around these dominoes. We can kind of work these things backwards to start to identify what are the activities I need to be taking right now. The last thing I want you to pull out of this slide is just a promise that's not going to be really exciting. And that is, if you look underneath that 2-inch domino, the Eiffel Tower, Mount Everest, and the moon, That's what success, the track of success looks like. As you go through this, we need the big vision because we need to stay inspired, but we also have to remember that the journey is a lot of the same work over and over, kind of mastering some principles or some behaviors, so that way we can become an overnight success years down the road. So Chris, you can pull that slide down if you'd like. And when we talk about this vision, I have found for me and for most of my coaching clients, that vision is very easy to come up with some bullet point items. And what we're looking for in vision, friends, is something that's inspirational, something that you get excited about achieving, that if you could achieve that in your life, you'd be super pumped about, and you would feel like you won life. And we use that vision to get us through the hard times. How many of you, put me in the chat boxes if this is you, how many of you had a big desire, big goal, and when you actually started to get to work, you realized it was way harder than you thought? You had something you wanted to achieve, you were confident in your skill set, but when it came to actually get to work, you realized that journey was significantly more challenging than maybe you thought. That's what vision's for. And so we need to come back to that. And we recommend, whenever you're feeling down, go back to your vision. That's helpful. But also, you heard Chris say 6 months annually, kind of come back and check in, because as you make progress towards that vision, you're going to learn more about yourself, and you're going to learn more about what you actually want. Quick story from my experience. When I first started this, guys, and it was vision, it was all about a net worth amount. How much money was I earning? And where I am now, 7, 8 years later, my vision of someday extraordinary success for me has very little to do with finances and very much to do with relationship and time. And as you go through your vision, pursue it, and you have success, you're going to learn more about yourself and what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you. So we need to check in with this vision, make sure what adjustments can I make, what have I learned, how do I adjust my process to make sure I'm still tracking towards what I actually want. And we've got some tools to help you understand like how to do this. So we've, if you're brand new, you've never been around the one thing, well, there's a couple different things that we do, right? We leverage some resources at our goal setting retreats and in our coaching relationships, where we'll use things like a someday letter. Come up with the emotions, put some dates. So how old would your kids or your family members be in your life someday in the future, 10, 15 years? We help you understand some of that stuff along with other resources that we have just to kind of help you get through this process, because a lot of times it's not about what work or how we feel about the work. This vision piece is really about pulling us through the challenges, the failures, so we just keep going forward, making progress and learning, not just giving up on our dreams. That's the last thing we want for you, is to throw this big vision out, hit some resistance, and then quit and end up where you don't want to be. This process, Chris, as you found, as I found, is about creating the life that you really want. That's why vision matters so much. So after vision, Chris, where do we go next?
Well, today we're going to go through some exercises together. Our goal was to give you, like I said, some clarity and some momentum, share with you what we can in an hour about our system and approach to setting goals and achieving them next year. I do want to share with you guys a really exciting opportunity that we have going into the new year that you can take advantage of. If you're interested in doing more, having our team support you next year and playing with the lead on your goals, we're launching a new course. It's called The First Domino. It's a 10-week course, kicks off in January. It's going to be weekly meetings with some of our best coaches, our head coach, Jordan Freed, and others. We'll leverage a clear framework, tools, custom content. There's group accountability. Really exciting. If you're interested in having us be a part of your journey early next year in this course, you can scan that QR code to get on the wait list, to learn more and get access to early bird pricing. I want to make sure you guys know that that resource is available to you, and we'd love to be a part of that with you before we jump into some exercise and content. So if you want more information, grab that QR code, jump in the wait list, learn more about that excellent and really interesting opportunity.
Chris, let's leave that up for a minute. And I'd like to take Roger's question real fast. And he says, hey, I'm coming into this next season where I'm retiring, right? This is, Roger, you're not alone here. Many, many coaching clients that we've had, or conversations from our community we've had, where people say, my someday is 3 years away because that's retirement. And the encouragement would be, there's life after retirement. So you're at this precipice where you can kind of decide, what now does success look like beyond being defined or constricted by business or a job? So give yourself permission to dream again and say, okay, well, what would I like retirement to look like? What would I like the relationships to look like? Am I choosing to work? Am I choosing to save? How do I handle my finances in retirement? It's a really exciting place to be rather than something that should, I don't want it to dissuade you because you're crossing one finish line, starting into the next. This is an exciting time, Roger. So go out there and throw a big vision. What would you want to achieve now that you no longer need to work? All right, Chris, that's all I had.
Awesome. If you guys have any questions about this, we'll save some time in the end to answer those. But let's jump in. So let's do a little bit of reflection. I like to say to know where we're going, we have to know where we are. We have to locate where we are today. It's like trying to put it in your GPS and saying, hey, I want to go to this location, but putting no starting point in. So you really don't have any relativity. So let's talk about where we are. Let's do a little bit of reflection. I want you to think back on 2024. Consider your top goals, your number one, maybe number two, possibly number three goals for the year if you have them. And I want you to answer the question, are you on track? Are you off track to achieve that goal or those goals this year? If you're comfortable, put your answers in the chat. There's no judgment here. Are you on track or off track to achieve your goals? Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you guys for sharing. Kind of a mix, right? On track, off track, way off. I feel you. Sherry said off, off, off. 1, 2, 3.
Mark,
Renee killed it.
Yeah, Mark said off track. I don't even know what my goals are. You're not alone. Not alone.
Yes. Well, it starts with figuring out where we are today.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thank you for sharing. So we've oriented around the goals. Let's ask the question then. If you're off track, what do you think was the single biggest thing? What's the one biggest thing that caused you to be off track this year towards your goals? Let's narrow our focus down, right? I'm sure there were multiple factors, but is there one that really stood out that caused you to be off track? What was that? If you're on track for your goals, having a 1-year-old, if you're on track for your goals, what was the biggest contributor to your success? What's causing you to win? Some great feedback. Gia said burnout. Maybe you're saying yes to too much.
Yeah. We're not celebrating victories along the way.
Perhaps our goals are too big. This is something that's really interesting. And I'm not sure, Mark, if you touched on it with vision, but we have this kind of inherent tendency, and why doing vision work is so important, to if we just set goals in the short term and we just, without doing vision work and goal setting backwards, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year. We set goals that are too big for the shorter term and dramatically underestimate what we can do in longer periods of time. And so when you're looking at kind of a root cause for maybe why you're way off track, did you set a goal that was just too big? Okay. Thank you guys for sharing the feedback and the reflection there. If you could look back on 2024, if there was one thing that you could do differently, right? If you had a crystal ball or a time travel device and you could go back and you could do one thing differently, what would that be based on the lessons that you've learned?
Will you say that again, Chris?
Of course. If you could go back in time in 2024 and do one thing differently that would have had the greatest impact on you achieving your goals, what would it be?
Yeah. Love my kids. Started morning rituals a year ago. Concentrate on focusing on me first. Oh, Mark, give myself some grace.
Awesome reflection, guys. Thank you. All right. We've done a little bit of location. Where are we coming from? Where are we today? Are we on track, off track? Why are we in the place we are today? Let's revisit just a core concept that drives the one thing that's at the kind of the base of everything that we do, and that's the 80-20 rule. Okay, so the 80-20 rule, simply put, the minority of things that you focus on will produce the majority of your results. There's a small number of things that have the greatest impact on your goals, the things that you do. It shows up in all areas of life. Right? It could be 20% of the people on a team deliver 80% of the results. 2 of 10 things on your to-do list this week are going to have the greatest impact on your goals. Right? This we can go across the board with this. And sometimes it tilts. Maybe it's 70-30. Sometimes it's 99-1. At the one thing, we think you can go a step further past the 20% and ask the question, what's the one thing? What's the one thing I could do that if I did it would have the greatest impact on my mid, short, long-term goals? What's the one thing I can do this year, this month, this week, today, in this webinar? What's the one thing I want to take away that will have the greatest impact on my goals? So we think you can take the 80-20 just a step further. And that's important because we have to acknowledge that everything doesn't matter equally. And that's true with the areas that we want to focus in our life next year. And that's how I wanted to set up the exercise I want to do with you guys next. If we believe that everything doesn't matter equally, and we acknowledge that it doesn't mean we're going to say no to everything else. It just means that we're going to give a disproportionate amount of focus on the things that are going to have the greatest impact. Then I want us to look at what we call the 7 circles. I want to help you guys focus on what's going to have the greatest impact on your life next year. And if we agree we can't focus on everything, it doesn't mean we're going to neglect anything necessarily. We're just going to tilt and counterbalance. I want you to think about these 7 circles: your health, your personal life, your key relationships, job, business, finances, and spiritual life. Which one of these circles, if you focused on it next year, would have the greatest impact on you? All right, doesn't mean you have to neglect any of them or say no necessarily. Which one, if you leaned into it and prioritized it, would have the greatest impact on your life next year on the path towards a bigger vision of where you want to be in the future? Take a moment and think about that. If you'd like to, put your answer in the chat. Which one? Awesome. Health, business, finances. The data holds true.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. Key relationships, spiritual. Mark went right to steps to complete buying a 360 painting franchise. You're there, man. Specific. That's a great segue. So once you guys have an idea which circle you think would have the greatest impact, ask the question, what would success look like next year? If you could accomplish one thing for that area, let's say it's your health, what's the one thing you could accomplish in 2025 that if you achieved it would make you feel like you're on path towards achieving a bigger vision for your health? Let's see if we can get a specific goal that you want to set. Barrett said lose 20 pounds. Exactly.
Great.
There you go.
Being a dad could be what got in the way of success. It also could be a goal. So not sure which question we're answering.
Mark said 360 painting franchise with 1 million in sales. Boom.
12% body fat, take care of vision, lose weight, exercise. There you go.
Pay off all consumer debt. There you go. Nice, Rebecca.
Like
very good, guys.
Season of this small, yeah. Great goals. Great start.
Net worth calculations. What'd you say? I think that was Lisa. Net worth calculations and goal. Okay, so get an idea of what your net worth currently is and set a goal for the end of the year. I know where that came from. All right, guys. So purpose of this, narrow our focus. Which circle could we focus on that would have the greatest impact? Can we set a specific goal on what success looks like next year? Are we thinking big enough? And can we be specific about what that success is? How would we know we're successful? We wanted to set the stage for you guys so that you could start to get an idea of where we want to focus so we can model this system and the process for you today. So clarity, where we want to focus, and specific about what success looks like. Mark, I'm going to pass it to you guys. Hang on to that for a little bit, and Mark's going to take us through our next part here, which is from priorities to create a plan. So now we're clear on what success is and where we want to focus. How do we create a plan?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we go any further in slides, Chris, I want to ask one quick question, and everyone can participate in this. If I was to give you $100 today or $200 in January of 2026, which one would you choose? Put your answer in the chat box. $100 today at the end of this webinar or $200 in January 2026. Now watch the chat. The overwhelming answer is $100 today. What most of you, what we're seeing in the chat box is this thing called hyperbolic discounting. Hyperbolic discounting is this idea of something could be twice as valuable, but a year in advance, but it doesn't feel as impactful, or maybe we don't take action on that because we want it today. We want results today. And friends, this happens in goal setting as well. So what happens for most of us is we get clear on this goal, maybe based on our vision, and then we start working towards it, but it's a year away. It's a whole year away. And we tend to go, whatever. So we've got some tools to help bring your goals and keep them top of mind and a little closer. So you see progress as you pursue those goals and you end up with the $200 without feeling cheated today. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or yes in the chat box if I'm making sense. Okay, thank you so much for those I can see. So Chris, these tools, throw the slide of the tools that we have that we leverage for this, there's two. One is what we call the GPS. The GPS really simply is a one-page business plan. It's a plan that we can use to get clarity on what are our priorities inside of our business, but it's not even restricted to a business, right, Chris? We use this for almost any kind of goal that has some big priorities, some big moving pieces to it, to get clarity on what actually deserves our attention, where we are, track with it, and make sure we're making adjustments along the way. Honestly, for most people, you can be successful without leveraging a GPS. It's just a really helpful tool the more complex your goal gets. From 90% of the people that we work with, I don't know, this is probably high, Chris. I would say probably 60% of the people we work with, you can, if you have just a personal goal, weight loss, better finances, maybe a career change, you can get by with this tool called the 411. Because what it does is it helps us get clear on what our annual goal is, and then some closer goals that aren't so far away that we don't feel connected to them. So what we do with the 411, we get clear. What are our professional and personal goals for the year? How would we know we're successful this year? Then we break those down into short-term goals and then some close weekly activities so we know what we need to be doing today so we can be achieving what we want in the future. That's really critical. The 411 is all about getting clear on the actions we're not yet doing so we can achieve results we're not yet achieving. So let's talk about this process. We're going to take that 1 year goal that you just identified that you want to achieve this year, and we're going to walk through this goal setting to now process, not in the form of the 411, but just mentally to help you go from an annual goal that might seem far away to what you can be doing today. So here's what we're going to engage in the chat. So here's what I want you to do.
Mark, real quick, can I add something real quick? I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Obviously, we're not going to dig too much into how to use these tools today, but we do have free resources on our website if you guys want a little bit of support there. But these are the two primary tools that we use and we leverage in our coaching and our training and our systems. We work with organizations. We talk about creating a plan. This is where that plan can live. And so if you want more information on how to use these tools so that you can capture your plan, you can visit theonething.com/free resources on the page to get a little bit more. If you want us to help you and be more guided in that support, that's why we have our coaching programs, our course, etc. So just wanted to put that there before we move on.
Well, in addition to that, the same thing that we just posted a moment ago, right? That course that we just put up with the QR code, that's another way to help get clarity on some of this stuff. So again, just keep that top of mind.
And Todd just made I'd be remiss not to acknowledge this, but Todd made a great point. Guys, we created 2 podcasts for you. One specifically for the GPS and one specifically for the 411 on the One Thing podcast. Episode 411 appropriately is about the 411. That was on purpose. And we dig into the tactical on that. How do you use it? How does it work? So if you want some more support there, that's another resource for you. Thank you, Todd.
Awesome. And as Andrea or Kim, thanks for throwing those resources in the chat box in case you all are interested. Now, here's what I'm going to ask though. For those of you who have already clicked the link and started to download these resources, come on back. Let's do this exercise together and you can go play with it later on. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that 1 year goal that you identified. And all we want to ask is a real simple question. In order for me to feel like I'm on track to achieving that goal by the end of 2025, what would I need to achieve in December of 2024, in the next month? What's the thing that you could achieve? If I'm from Florida, friends, so I talk in a lot of nautical terms. And when you're going out to the ocean, you have to go through channel markers. So when you're looking, if you're trying to get out to big water, there's channel markers along the way, and I know what channel marker I need to get to. That's a midterm goal. That could be your monthly goal. So if you've got your big goal for the year in the chat box, what do you think you have to get to by the end of December just to feel like you're on track for achieving your goal by the end of next year? Daniel, great call out. So the comment is it's hard to set a realistic 1 year goal because they all seem really big and unrealistic. You bring up a great point, and that is in order to really do this process well, those goals, we want them to be specific and measurable. We want to know what we're actually trying to achieve and how we would know we're successful. So it could be a specific number, it could be a metric. There's got to be something we have to be able to measure against. All right, Chris, I was answering that question. What do you see in the chat box that is coming up?
A couple questions about how do I know? Carol was asking, how do I know?
So Carol, if you're saying, like, for instance, your goal, let's just say, because the most common thing we saw in the chat box there was a health goal. If your goal is to be by the end of next year, be consistently working out 5 days a week, then you might ask the question, what do I need to do in the month of December? Well, it could be something like, I need to go buy workout clothes. I need to establish a routine in the morning. I need to establish a bedtime routine so that way I'm up in the morning to work out. It could be I need to hire a coach, like a physical trainer coach. It could be that I need to join a gym. There's lots of things that you could do in the next 30 days that when you work this thing out and you run it out over time, you know that if I do this month, then maybe by February, I'm working out 3 times a week, or I'm feeling confident, or whatever that might be. So that way, by the end of the year, I'm working out 5 days a week. Hope that helps. Chris, jump in if again, if you're seeing things in the comments or questions that we see here.
Yeah, I thought it'd be helpful just to pull this back up for everybody, because keep in mind you're trying to line up your dominoes, right? And if you line up your dominoes well enough that they can get exponentially larger as you go out into the future and smaller as you come back to today. All right, there's a kind of a physical property and law to the way that dominoes function. They can knock over dominoes up to 50% larger, real dominoes. So the idea here is, if you remember that graphic from earlier when Mark was talking about vision, your 57th domino could nearly reach from the earth to the moon. That's your vision. That's your someday goals. That's what you really want to be, who you want to be, where you want to be 10 years in the future, right? We're trying to work our way back from there, with these dominoes getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you get closer to today, to ultimately work your way back to what Mark is asking right now is, what's the one thing, what's the single most important thing you could accomplish by the end of next month to feel like you're on track to hit that goal that you just set for 2025? And it doesn't have to be so big that it feels unachievable. It's what's the one thing you can do next month?
Yeah.
Right. Can is the operative word there. Right. Make it something that you can do, because if you line up your dominoes correctly, none of them should feel unachievable. They're getting exponentially smaller as you get closer to today.
Yeah. And there's some great ideas in here. So like Barrett said, I could come up with some meal prep ideas. I could, John said, I could just register the new company, right? We're not even talking about what are my products? How am I getting leads? Just, can I register the company with the IRS, launch a social media account, right? There's some great ideas in here. And to Chris's point, friends, if this is your first time going down the path, let's say it's a health goal or it's a business goal, and you're not sure what the right answer is, part of this process is just about getting enough clarity so that way you can take action, and you might find, you know what, that strategy didn't work. So we come back and we go, all right, well, then what I want to achieve next? What can I improve? What can I change and tweak so I can learn more and then be successful? Yeah, Mark, complete purchase of 360 business by January 1. That's fantastic, right? That's a great goal. Fantastic. So again, while you are still working on this 1 year down to 1 month, for some of you, establishing the 1 year goal can be a little bit challenging. And again, we have an hour together today. So we just spent 2 days doing this in Austin, Texas. So if you're struggling to walk away from here today with a really clear, I feel super confident around this goal today, then remember, like that's okay. Every time we do this, we're building a muscle. We just are going to continue to strengthen that muscle. And we've got lots of ways that we can help you, whether it's in our free community, whether it's in coaching one-on-one, or additional webinars and courses we're going to share with you guys later on. All right. So complete the purchase. That's great. Buy professional business goes fantastic. I just need the wardrobe so I can start to show up. This is great. So where do we go from here? Once we've got clarity around what success looks like for the next month, now we get to shift gears. If I'm looking to achieve something, what is the actions I need to be engaging or doing so that way I'm on track to actually hitting that result? Here's an example. If I'm looking to get better at pull-ups, there's two different things, right? One is, is my body too heavy? This is my challenge right now, right, Chris? We've talked about this several times. My goal is 51 pull-ups without stopping. Well, number one, I weigh 225, so that's a lot to pull up. And number two, my lats aren't super strong yet. So what are the exercises that I can be doing this week that are going to lead to my goals? If I'm starting a business, if I'm looking to lose weight, if I'm looking to grow my net worth, what are the specific action items I can be engaging with that will get me to the end of the month goal? These, friends, are where you want to go small. You look at that first image, that moon to Mount Everest, to the Eiffel Tower, to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, to a 2-inch domino. What we're looking for are actions that are so simple. You feel like that can't be it. That's too easy. That's a great place to start. Something that falls with minimal effort, so that way you can begin engaging in the activities, so you'll start over time getting the results that you really, really want. Digital declutter, buy professional clothes. Okay, great. So we're getting some things there. John says the hurdle is that the company needs specific people on board because it deals with real estate. I decided to focus on that because I've placed my first order and invested a significant amount of cash because I believe in my vision. Okay,
Hey, Mark, can I just clarify something, just to zoom us out for a sec? So what we're having everybody do is we went through the 7 circles and we had you guys identify a priority, one area you want to focus on in 2025, set a goal. Then we had you say, okay, let's pull our dominoes back one domino smaller and ask the question, what's the one thing I can do by the end of December to feel like I'm on track for 2025? And what you're asking now is, what's the action I can take this week, right? A little bit of a shift from a milestone to, like, in the week, we're really kind of action oriented. So what's the one thing I can do this week to feel like I'm on track for my goal for the month of December?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep. What are the activities that either I'm not doing or need to be doing more of that are going to lead towards that outcome that I'm after? Friends, you have a lot of things you are already doing. We're very aware of that. The purpose of this is to give you clarity on the activities that are going to lead you towards the results you want. So we just want to
Mark,
identify.
there's a question in the chat, and I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. That one's a tough one for me. But
That's Israel. Okay.
Yeah, Israel. What if I don't actually know what my mission is for 2025? Well, I'd say let's start by narrowing our focus. That's why we looked at those 7 circles earlier. So see if you can at least answer the question, which area do you feel like, even if it's not perfect, instinctually, which area would have the greatest impact for you? And start there. Start with one, right? And if you can think of a goal you could set relative to that area, it's going to allow you to at least get started. And remember, progress over perfection. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have a perfect plan out of the gate, even if you thought you did. We talked about this earlier. Guarantee you it doesn't go according to plan. So don't waste the time in thinking you need the perfect plan, right? Implement the imperfect plan. So just give it a shot. Go through the exercise. Hopefully that helps.
And again, friends, give yourself grace in this. If this is your first time doing this, it might feel clunky or awkward or like you're not doing it right. it's okay. That what we're looking for is the ability to get clear enough that we can start behaving in a way that's going to lead to our results. And if we find that that's wrong, the great news is you get to redo this exercise. We do this exercise every 7 days because it's a new week. Okay, am I on track or off track? But now I'm not going in a quarter stretch or a half year or a full year stretch for my goals. I'm checking in with them every week to see what adjustments I need to make in the process.
Hey,
Luke
great
asked,
question. Yeah, from Luke. Yeah, do we focus or do we do all 7 circles for 2025? I think the challenge here is we can't focus on everything, right? If
mm-hmm,
you invest equal energy in all 7 areas, then you're going to miss kind of the essence of what we're emphasizing today, which is we need to prioritize the areas that matter most. So start with one. What's the one that you feel like will have the greatest impact? And then you could ask, okay, like let's earn the right to focus on a second, maybe a third, but we can't focus on all of them. If you want to at least ask the question of like what would success look like in each of the 7 areas to help get clarity to then decide where you want to focus, that's great. Let's just acknowledge that we can't give equal effort and energy in all areas.
mm-hmm. Yeah, great call out, Chris. Thanks so much. There's one thing in here that said, I decided this morning to change up my planner 2025. I like a visual thing. That's great. All 7 circles we spoke to. John, I'm glad you're getting some clarity. Elizabeth said, categorize, take inventory, prioritize, and schedule.
Boom.
Great call. You're jumping ahead of us, but that's right where we're going next.
Should
This week.
we
Yep.
go ahead?
I was just gonna
Should we jump into the next step? Does
absolutely.
anybody need support on, again, what we're trying to do here was create the plan. And we're doing an abbreviated version of it for you guys so we can model the behavior. You can do this for your goals. In this area with create the plan, we shared those 2 tools with you. That's where you can take the work that you're doing today and input that into those tools to stay accountable. But the muscle of how to ask the question, what's the one thing this year, this month, this week, how to tune that up. We wanted you guys to at least get a rep with that. So if you have more questions, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to move into the next of the 5 steps in the flywheel, which is take action and some really important, I think, takeaways on productivity.
Yeah.
And the first piece of that is how we really manage our calendar, time blocking, right? And before we get into this, let's do a little check-in and some self-awareness on what kind of time blocker or person you are as it relates to your calendar. What I've found and Mark has found is that there's kind of 2 ends of the spectrum. Like, are you the type of person that your calendar is wall to wall, time blocked all the way through all day, very little white space. Everything you do is on your calendar, and maybe you even overcommit, right? If you're that person, put a number 1 in the chat. Be honest. All right.
These people already had one in the chat box.
Yeah, right.
Ready to
right.
go. Like, let's
They
move.
have 1 time blocked for 3:42 Central right now. Perfect. Okay, then the other end of that spectrum would be that, you know what, your calendar doesn't really reflect what you do. Maybe you don't even use it that much. It's a concept perhaps you understand, but it's just not something you leverage on a day-to-day basis. That's completely okay. If you're that person, put a number 2 in the chat. There we go.
1.5 I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys. That's enlightening, but that's true, right? Then there's everything in the middle, right? And maybe you're 1 month, you're, 1.75 and another month you're 1.1. And that's completely normal to do that. But it's just good to understand that depending on where you are on that spectrum is going to influence maybe where you need to focus, right? If you tend to over commit your calendar, then you're probably in on the mission of trying to figure out what you can say no to, how you can clear things off your calendar, like what you can delegate, how you can be better about only saying yes to the things that matter and starting to get some time back, right? If you're in the other camp, then your next steps are probably saying, okay, how can I be better at leveraging my calendar? Because you are at least 2-3 times more likely to accomplish the things that you aim to accomplish if you put them on your calendar. Right? Evidence supports it. Studies support it. Leveraging your calendar is going to set you up for success. Now, you can take that too far, and then the challenge becomes honoring the things you put on your calendar. So let's talk about time blocking a little bit more. So we shared the impact of time blocking on productivity, right? That's important. Like using your calendar is a weapon in productivity. It's going to help set you up for success. The question we need to be asking, though, is when we go through the exercises of identifying our goals, breaking them down, creating the plan, and then knowing what our one thing is for the week for each of the areas of our focus, like does your calendar truly reflect your goals? When you look at your calendar, are you just really busy, or are you investing your time in the things that truly matter most for you? Right? Take a look at your calendar when you have time. Take a look at your goals and say, do these things reflect each other? Or am I saying yes to everybody else's goals and priorities and not my own? That's an important point of reflection. Do your calendars truly represent your goals? Okay, and there's really three things at a minimum that we suggest that you guys time block. Right? If you're new to time blocking, if you're not leveraging your calendar to its potential, this is the things you probably want to add. If you're overcommitting your calendar, these are the things that you got to make sure you keep on as you start to find out what you could say no to. Okay, the first one is, anybody want to guess? What's the most important thing you need to time block proactively out in the future to make sure you don't go crazy? Vacation. There you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Jacqueline's got it. Because what happens if we don't protect time for us, guys? What happens?
Someone
Burnout.
called this out earlier, right? Burnout.
Right. Got to plug those batteries in, or you have diminishing returns on your focus, your energy, your productivity. Sounds obvious. I think we all kind of get the concept. The difference is if we don't put it on our calendar, it's just theoretical, right? We have to be intentional about creating the time. That's number one, right? Our vacation, our time off. Number two that we recommend you put on your calendar is your one thing, the stuff that you identify, your 20%. All right, we talked about this earlier. The 20% that produces 80% of your results is your 20% on your calendar. Are you time blocking the things that are important, but not necessarily always urgent? Because those are the ones that are easy to say no to. Okay, guys, the last thing, the third thing we recommend that you put on your calendar is your reflection time, your planning time. Right? This is the time in that fifth step of our flywheel that we are evaluating our results weekly, monthly, quarterly. We're checking in. Are we on track? Are we off track? What do we need to change in the plan? Have we achieved our goals? Let's update our vision and our priorities to make sure that we still are engaging in the process. Which is I think, a really great segue for us here. And to the next section of take action, right? Habits. When we think about becoming the type of people that will earn the right to achieve our goals, which is really about behavior change, if we're going to achieve extraordinary things in the future, we need to, I think, accept and acknowledge the fact that we're going to have to grow as people. We're going to have to, over time, become different people to see different results. If we set really big goals for ourselves, we need to figure out what that change looks like. Be intentional about the habits that we form. And the first question you need to ask is, are your habits connected to your goals? Because we don't want to just create habits for the sake of creating habits. Our habits should be intentional. We're saying, okay, let's say, for example, that earlier you picked your health as the circle you want to focus on. We should be asking the question and answering the question, to achieve my goal of running a 4-hour marathon in 2025, I need to become the type of person that does what? Eats a healthy diet and has a training plan that I follow. Perfect. Now you've got an idea of the type of behavior that you need to shift towards in the bigger picture. Then we can ask the question, what's one thing I could do every day? If I did it for every single day for 66 days, I would start to become the type of person that eats healthy. You know what? Meal prep. That could be the answer. For me, I want to become the type of person that manages my nutrition so I can run this 4-hour marathon. I'm going to meal prep for 66 days straight. Is that making sense? Mark, anything you would add?
I not in this section, no.
Perfect. Okay, big thing with habits. You see it all the time in our coaching and the training that we do. The tendency is to go for big behavior changes in short periods of time. Oh, I couldn't advise against that more. You're looking for consistency over intensity. Right? We're looking for small, consistent changes in behavior. Consistency is the goal. We can stack habits over time. If you don't, to continue with the marathon example, if you don't run today and all of a sudden you say you're going to run 5 miles a day for 66 days, are we setting ourselves up for success? No, that's a huge change in behavior. We need to go smaller, right? We could say it's that we are just tracking our calories and our macros every day for 66 days. Much more doable. You guys with me? Consistency over intensity.
Yeah, Chris, if I might, Rebecca put in the chat that she needs to change her bedtime or time block her bedtime routine. She's fallen into some bad habits. And Rebecca, what we would probably ask if we were in a coaching relationship, we would ask, what's the one thing that you can do that would either break the cycle of bad habits in your bedtime routine or would make your bedtime routine easy? And you might identify one key behavior that you might do at 8:30 at night. And then whether you choose to engage in your bad habits or not, now we're starting to form the right habit. We're replacing that habit. So I love what you're saying. I just want to give some context around how these habits might show up. Sometimes, Chris, it's, hey, can I just plug my phone in or turn the TV off at 9 o'clock at night so I get to bed by 9:30? That could be a great habit.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Mark. Yeah. I guess our goal in sharing this take action section of habits with you guys is to think and just remember that if we're going to achieve our goals, we've got to shift our behavior. We can't do it in huge swings. Do it in habits. 66 days, our data has found, if you do something small for 66 days, you will form this habit over time. Think about habits as the driving force for you to leverage discipline and sprints so you can grow, achieve your goals. Mark, I'm going to pass it back to you about our fifth section of the flywheel, which is evaluate results.
Yeah. Awesome. So the real question here is, how often should we be adjusting and reflecting? And what does that actually look like? Well, it's a real simple process. What we recommend is once a week, you have that block on your calendar that Chris mentioned a moment ago, that time block where you just check in with your plan. What we said a moment ago, the exercise we went through is we have a 1-year goal. We have a monthly milestone. We have some weekly activities. At the end of the week, before the next week begins, block some time to just ask the question, how did I do? What can I learn from the things I didn't do well? Or what can I duplicate from what's working well? Then what needs to happen in the next week? And what happens is magically at the end of 1 week, that's also the end of the month. And we ask the same questions. How did I do this month? What adjustments or what changes would I make to the month ahead? And then what do I need to do this next week? And then every 6 months or so, we then come back, and that's when we re-engage that vision process. The whole key around this idea of reflection is to really make sure that our reflection is purposeful. And what we mean by that is we're asking big questions, powerful questions that help keep us moving forward. You see on the right side of the screen there, there's this little action, this little wheel. This idea of purposeful reflection is designed to do two things. It's designed to give you clarity on where you are, what needs to happen, and then get you to where you can engage and start taking action on what matters most. Now, we talked number 2, set your cadence and stay accountable. What does that mean? It means pick a time that's going to work for you and be diligent about showing up for that. We recommend anytime between Friday afternoon, end of the day Friday, and Sunday evening. And I will tell you, friends, it took me about a year to really understand when was the best time for me where I can consistently show up to do this work. But once I figured it out, man, it became a whole lot easier. And so just stick with this process over time. Stay accountable. Keep asking the question, how am I doing? What adjustments do I need to make? And then that third thing is adjusting the plan. When we talk about the plan, we're talking about the overall, like, especially if you are using a GPS in a business or for some big complex goals, do we need to make adjustments to our priorities or strategies? At the monthly level, if it's something as simple as a weight loss goal, is it just exercise, or do we actually need to address diet as well? Does that need to start showing up this month or this week? So we make these adjustments. Friends, I want to remind you, the ingredients to success in your goal, one of the major ingredients is failure. And what we mean by that is taking action and not getting the results that you want. Those failures aren't detrimental, though. They're part of the process. And the question, how we overcome failures, by asking, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently? How can I improve so we keep moving forward? Don't be disheartened by failure. The only real failure is when you stop moving forward altogether. So when we talk about this evaluation thing, again, it's important that we reflect. It's important that we get clarity on where we're going. We set a cadence, we stay accountable to it, and we make adjustments along the way. That is the process. That's the recipe for success. Chris, anything you would add here?
No, I think you nailed it. It's just a healthy ritual of reflection can be a life-changing habit to form for you guys. It really can be one thing you could do that makes all the difference. If you go long periods of time without checking in, the distance between you and the path to achieving your goals can grow. And before you know it, you check in a month or 2 months and you're so far off track, you're discouraged. It doesn't feel like you can achieve it anymore. So the benefit of doing short intervals of reflection is you can catch the small things and make the small corrections so that you can stay on track.
Yeah. The other risk, Chris, is what someone mentioned in the chat box at the start of the call. I don't even remember what my goals are. I don't even remember the priorities I set out for myself this year.
Mm. Awesome. Okay, guys, I just want to put a bow on what we talked about today, and then we're going to take some questions if you guys have them. Again, we went through the system, and the goal for us, for you guys today, was to share as much as we could in an hour about this overall process and how you can approach setting your goals for next year and the tools and system to stay on track to achieve them. Right? This is a muscle you build over time. We talked about vision, the importance of zooming out, figuring out where you want to be someday in the future, connecting that to your values, helping use that vision to leverage as you work backwards the priorities that you want to set, the plan that you need to create. We shared with you our two tools, the GPS and the 411, that there's some resources you can do those on your own. Let us be a part of your journey, and we can support you in our programs, our training, our coaching, and the first Domino course that's kicking off in January. And I'll put that QR code back up here in a second. If you guys are interested, again, in learning more about this, getting access to early bird pricing, please click on that or capture that QR code or follow that link. Just throw your name in there and your email, and we'll keep you informed on what resources we have to support you. Awesome. Well, let's hit pause there, and we're just going to open it up for you guys. What questions do you have that we didn't answer for you so far today? How can we support you more and be a part of solving the challenge of achieving your goals next year?
Yeah. So just some that are in the chat box, feel free guys to add your questions as you think of them. Explaining the 20% on the calendar, what that looks like. So again, remember those three things we recommend is your vacation, your one thing, and then that planning time we just talked about that you might do every week. Let's see what other questions we had.
So I just saw one here that says, how do you balance time blocking every week and fluctuating schedules?
Mm-hmm.
I think if I understand that question correctly, if you're doing what we recommended and you separate some time every week, 30 minutes or an hour to do reflection and planning, then you're able to adjust for what's unique about the upcoming week. So if your schedule is fluctuating, then you're saying, let's say on Friday at 2 p.m., hey, where did I win this past week? What did I learn? Based on that, now that I know my goals for the month, what's the one thing I can do next week? What are my priorities next week? And where do they fit in my calendar, knowing what my restrictions and limitations are? So you allow for that each week to be unique based on what you can do.
Yeah. And you might need to start your time blocking further out where you don't have commitments in a week already. And if something from work that's a higher priority requires that same time block, we have a saying, it's just called, if you erase it, just replace it. You might just move that time block in the week or in the day, so that way you can make sure you get to it. I think there's a great question around replacing or ridding bad habits. You guys saw Jay, thanks for chiming in there. Again, remember, sometimes it's easier to replace the bad habit with the better one. So that's a great opportunity. We talked about the three things. I feel like I need to take a step back. Did we do a visioning webinar or podcast? Chris, can you think of a podcast we've done around vision?
Yeah, I believe someone had commented on what episode
327.
it was.
There it is.
There you go.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
You see another good question that we did not answer. Does the one thing share the magic, the uncomfortable questions? I mean, there's definitely powerful questions in reflection. And I think to really set yourself up for success next year, I mean, you need to ask yourself and others powerful questions about what success looks like, and then leverage the system and tools that are going to get you there. To answer your question specifically, I mean, I don't think we have a specific list of the magic of uncomfortable questions, but maybe I'm not understanding your question.
We, at some point for our coaches, I know that Jeff Woods, I'm sorry to jump in there, guys. I joined a little late. We
I'm
came
sure
up with
everybody's
the
offended, Jay.
hundred deadly questions he created.
Yep.
So I do think we have a repository of questions around the book that we have tapped into from time to time. But I'm not sure exactly what the answer is either.
Mm.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks,
Chris,
Jay.
two more real fast. One is, what if imagining a 5-year or someday goal is unimaginable? 1 year's tough enough. I'll let you
Yeah, I
take
love
one,
that.
and I'll go to Carol's.
Yeah, no, I love that. So if this process is difficult, and I mean, there's kind of there's really, generally speaking, two types of people that get started in this process. You're kind of the dreamer or the doer, right? By default. And as a dreamer, you love vision. You're like, oh, I can paint a picture of someday, no problem. How long you got? Let's go. Right. And then there's the other side of that equation, which is you're more the doer, and you're very tactical, right? You can break things apart. You can be incredibly productive, but the bigger vision works much more difficult. So if you tend to be a doer, like, leverage the resources you have around you and understand it's a muscle you can build over time. If you want to get better at anything, you just got to do it. Right. So if for you, that means starting at a year and then earning the right to like build this muscle, and maybe it's 2 and 5, and before you know it, then you're just getting better at this over time. So give yourself permission to start where you are and know that you can grow.
Yeah, I would add, I've seen with some of my coaching clients that start in the same place, start with one, and then work the process backwards. If you achieve that in one, what could success look like at the 5-year level? And that sometimes will unlock that for people. But to Chris's point, it is very much a muscle, and it's okay. You're starting where you are.
The further out I get in the future, like my logical brain wants it to fit into a spreadsheet. And so I want to just echo what both of these great trainers and coaches have said. Like, nobody's got a crystal ball.
Right.
That 5-year target is just kind of a target, and it's really broad. And I guarantee you, after a year or 2 years, it'll be a lot clearer what it should be. Wendy and I have been doing this for 19 years, and we've gotten really dialed in at the 5-year. But for the first 4 or 5 years of practice, it was really all over the place. So, like they said, it's a muscle. No one's got a crystal ball. It can change, it can go away, but it's really helpful to put something out there to be working backwards from.
Thank you, Jay. Hey guys, I want to acknowledge we are at time, and I want to give you permission to honor your time and your commitments. If I will stick on for another minute or so, if anybody else has questions, and you guys are welcome to stay, but I wanted to make sure you guys know that you can go, and we really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for your feedback and investing the time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here. And as people are logging off, Chris, there's one more question I think it's worthwhile to answer. Carol, if you're still on, how do we use these principles in the nonprofit and the organizing space in setting goals this year? The truth is, Carol, is a lot of it's the same. Just your results might be a little bit different on the back end. So your goals might be around impact versus a profit number or something along those lines. And if you're running a team through this, again, if it's a large nonprofit, you might leverage something like that GPS we talked about. And if you still have some additional questions on that, we'd be more than happy to sit down and have a free conversation with you about how you actually implement this into your world. That's what we do.
Thank you, Mark. Ido, I think you'd asked if you can come off mute, and of course, we'd love to talk to you. So if you have a question, fire away.
Thank you. First of all, I would like if you have sometimes some retreat in Israel. Usually Texas. Israel is very near to Texas, so
Yeah, no problem.
Nearby.
Short
right
flight.
next to Texas.
I had a question. I'm a new father. I have a 1-month son, and you spoke a lot about time blocking, but I see every time I want to time block stuff, I don't know, like if I will early make my sport or my reading or whatever mission I have, but I don't know, maybe the baby is going to cry in this time, and my sleep will not be good and I cannot wake up in this hour. And I see no matter what I'm planning, I cannot say like this is the 1 hour. I said no to anything and just focused on myself.
Mm. So there's an element of how can you best protect your time, right? Because the reality is maybe you say, I'm going to put an hour on my calendar for my most important work Tuesday at 9 a.m., but the baby starts crying and you got to do what you got to do, right? And that's just the reality of it. So I think there's some tools you can use to best we call protect your time block. That's creating a bunker, an environment that's going to be most likely for you to achieve your goals. And I think it's also like, are you setting your time blocks in the place and the time where you're most likely to be successful? So if you know that you're most often having to support the baby at this time, maybe that's not when you should put that time block, right? So it's the environment you're in and also like when on your calendar you're most likely to be successful. The other thing I would add too is that if you need to move it, that's okay because life happens. So just don't erase it. Put it somewhere else. Like shift it on your schedule because you've already committed and said this is the most important thing I can do this week. Life's gonna happen for sure. Just shift it to where you can do it so that you make sure you don't say no. You're just saying yes somewhere else.
And if I can add, one of the things that when we went through COVID, right, what we had to do in our household is my wife and I don't know if you have a partner that can help you with this or not, but if it's not a partner, there might be other new dads that are in the same boat that are trying to get some work done, but they got kids where you kind of barter time. Hey, can you buy me an hour so that way I can get some work done? And then we'll switch right around and I'll watch the kids and then you get work done for an hour. This is literally how my wife and I survived through COVID without losing a lot of traction in our businesses. It was literally a tag in and tag out, just like you'd see like wrestlers, like I'm maxed out, your turn. Now let me go do my most productive work. And so think about who can you leverage in your world. And that sounds terrible, but who can you have as a partner to support you, to give you some relief where it doesn't matter if the baby's crying, if or is hungry or whatever. I've got this time. We've agreed that I've got this 15, 20, 30 minutes to do really focused work. And then I'm going to take over and give them a break. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sherry, welcome to Parenthood. Best comment of the whole chat.
I knew that was the one you were laughing at when she put it there. Like we've
I
all,
was like, yeah.
We had two that were 16 months apart. And so like we lived that and play dates are magical.
Yes.
Like it's almost easier to watch three toddlers than it is to watch one because they somehow occupy each other. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I didn't see any additional questions in the chat box. So, friends, those of you who are still here, we really appreciate you hanging out. Jay, thanks for jumping on and chiming in. Really appreciate that, man. And
Great
Chris,
job.
yeah, absolutely. Great job, buddy.
Bye, everybody. See you next time.
Have a great one, friends.